Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another recap of The Last of Us Season 1 with ProfNoctis, that's me, and Evan. How you doing, Evan?
Hey, that's me. We are at the last episode of
The last of Us.
Can you believe it?
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's been 9 weeks of this, and Season 2 is upon us, and we are here at the season finale of Season 1. Going to get into some really big stuff. Really, the theme of the show, and the question that everybody leaves the game, the first game, and the season asking of Joel's choice.
Who is the Last of Us?
Who is the Last of Us? It's like
the question we've been asking the entire time.
Who is?
And we set out this. What is this game trying to say? What is this story trying to say? And it's trying to get us to ask the question: who is the Last of Us?
Who among us is the Last of Us? It really is just like the catchy like theory behind Survivor. You know,
it does have a kind of game show or reality TV show.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hey, come on down. Yeah, the next contestant on The Last of Us.
And as we find out today, well, there are a few of us left after the carnage.
Well, we find out that some of us have a choice to be on the game show The Last of Us, and some of us do not have a choice to be on the game show The Last of Us. Some of our parents decide for us that maybe we're not supposed to. No, this episode, usually we'll go through and recap all the different things that happen. But this episode is mostly about the central choice that one character gets to make. One character gets to make a choice, really, in this episode, in this part of the game.
That's it.
And Wade, this is all about that.
It is. And so there's been tons of discussion and debate about episode 9 of The Last of Us and the first game entirely. And so in some ways we are going to rehash some of that, but I think that here at the end of season 1 of this recap and this lecture series, before we get into season 2, we've got a lot of data. We've had the interview with Charles Horn. We've discussed with Dr. Anthony Bean, so psychology and philosophy. We've talked with Dr. Gleason, an actual biomedical ethicist. And so our job today is to kind of synthesize this stuff and to have a little bit of a discussion regarding where do we sit on this. We're going to talk a little bit about what Neil Druckmann has said recently. And so we're going to try to frame this whole season and this episode through the lens of Joel's choice, but what does it also mean moving into season 2? So that's kind of where we are today, and all of those kind of things will happen toward the end of our recap.
Well, what a choice it is that he makes, and we learn a few things in the episode quickly. We get this cold kind of, well, no, is it the cold open? The open.
It is. It's an open, and then you have the title screen, and then you continue the open, which is really interesting here. Yeah,
where we come to find out that Ellie's mom, and a little bit of the story about how Ellie came to be, and it is a haunting, terrifying, kind of 28 days later-esque opening where she's pregnant and escaping from these monsters, truly.
This scene maybe it's either my favorite or second favorite cold open in the entire show, because similar to the mycologist, I think in episode 2, similar to that episode's cold open, this adds some new framing and some new lore to The Last of Us. So here we get to see Ellie's mom, played by Ellie's voice actor from the game, Ashley Johnson, which is just so cool. And just, I am sure that was an incredibly heartwarming kind of pass the torch experience, pass the baton to Bella. I just think it's really cool. Anyway, you get this.
Could have played a happier scene. I mean,
you know, you would love to see a happier scene, but it's still kind of happy, right? Because like she's having a baby and she loves the baby, even though she knows that she's not long for this world. It's just like, it's bittersweet, but it's also sweet, you know?
Well, it certainly gets your attention and kind of strips the raw humanity out of it and presents it to you and say, here's the bare minimum that we can give you for you to like this. This is, you're going to feel a little good. That's all you get. Two little eyedroppers of feeling good. And everything, but don't forget, it's mushroom-inspired despair over here. This is all you're going to have.
It's kind of it, isn't it? What I love most about this scene is you're getting some level of reasoning for why Ellie is immune. Okay, and it's like the cutting of the umbilical cord, with
the switchblade.
She got just enough of the infection to be immune to it. And I don't understand all the science in that. Maybe we should have a biologist come on and be like, well, this is kind of how that works. But
I don't think anybody does, and definitely not poor Sam.
Not so true. She should have just hooked up an umbilical cord. That would have worked.
Oh, that's it.
It's one of those. And to me, this scene, it's not necessarily about all of the one-to-one science behind it. It really is like, okay, in my mind, as an armchair understander of these things, makes enough sense.
There's a reason.
And that's fine. I don't need to know all of it. But I appreciate the insight into it, and I appreciate the relationship between Anna, Ellie's mom, and Marlene here, because it does recontextualize Marlene's relationship with Ellie, and it's something that we don't get in the game.
No, I was very surprised by this when we first see it, when I first saw it, because I was like, wait.
Yeah.
I don't think that is, like, we don't know
canon.
anything about this. This idea that she stashed Ellie with Phaedra because it was like this, like Moses and like down the Nile in the reeds with the basket.
Yeah.
And just like, all right, I'll get you out of gym class when it's time.
What a great analogy. Like Moses in the reeds in the basket. Yes. Like she's saving him for the purpose of deliverance, right? Oh, wow. What a great comparison.
And the Phaedra. I'm just trying to make a Phaedra reed analogy, and I just can't find it.
Yeah, you should have stopped while you were ahead. That one didn't work. But I love the analogy there. And I also love the plagues of death and suffering that are wrought as a result of her.
I mean, maybe in other places more than Boston. You know, I think she definitely gets her chance to shine a little bit later.
I think Kathleen's Pharaoh.
She definitely is. But don't worry. I don't think we're going to have to worry about sweet Kathleen too much.
If she comes back in season 2, I'm losing it.
We've got all new villains coming up in season 2. And what if they choose to go around everything and do zombie Kathleen? She's just, don't you know?
The worst.
Cordyceps is free. We're going to be fine.
We're going to be fine.
Don't you know? You look stressed. That's Kathleen. The person who's causing you stress. What's wrong? You look stressed. You're wrong. It's you.
Kathleen,
you're the one.
We have an entire episode where I just destroy Kathleen. So we need to move to this recap. Okay.
So as
maybe Catherine O'Hara, the therapist in season 2, is going to talk to Joel about his unresolved Kathleen issues.
Yeah.
Joel's it's really an avatar for me.
He's definitely going to deal with his issues. That definitely is going to happen.
Okay, so in episode 9 of season 1,
it takes a giraffe to get.
It takes the giraffe. We pick up after the flashback to Ellie's birth to Ellie and Joel traveling. And it is an interesting place to be in because Joel is uncharacteristically friendly, maybe even fatherly, and Ellie is just shutting it down.
Way too jovial for Joel.
Way too jovial.
He's jovial.
Yeah.
Not jovial. He is like, wow, look at this stuff.
Look at this stuff. Isn't this neat? And she
definitely has big, like, dad on the weekend energy.
He does. And, it's interesting because at the end of episode 8, you start to think, okay, they're going to have this really strong relationship here. And it's clear that Joel has warmed up to her. I mean, really warmed up. He's taken on that archetype relationship of like father-daughter sort of thing. So kind of taking her under his wing. She, however, is in her own head, big time. And it's clear everything that he says, she's just being dismissive of. Not really dismissive even. It's not really that. It's just she is, I guess aloof is the word.
Yeah, she's checked out for sure.
Yeah, it's like when you're talking to somebody and it's clear that something else is on their mind, but like
it's the uh-huhs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like every middle schooler with their parents, I guess. Maybe it tracks. That's exactly right. And you start to question yourself, like, hey, did I do something wrong? Like, am I? But they're just in their own head.
Oh yeah, that's what that
Don't
is.
do that
It
to
is.
me.
I mean, she's definitely aloof, and so. Yeah. But they are able to climb the ladder of conversation together, and when they do, there's another allusion to some of the puzzles that exist in the game, where you've got a bunch of ladders, and Joel has to carry them and give them to Ellie, and Ellie scurries up the ladder and gets so excited she sees something that the ladder falls. Joel is, oh man, shucks, I'm just the dad guy with the ladder, and he's kind of trying to catch up. He's a little bit worried about her, you can kind of tell. And we see something truly exotic for this show.
Yeah, so Ellie is captivated. This is the one thing that's kind of broken her out of her stupor in a lot of ways. She sees giraffes just running wild or grazing in this dilapidated cityscape, and it is one of the most beautiful things that can happen. This is beautiful in the game too, just because it's so surprising, something natural, something that feels like the world's going to be okay. But this does create a moment for self-reflection for both of them, for Joel and for Ellie. Because Ellie looks out and she says, Joel says, is it everything that you dreamed it would be? And she says, it's had its ups and downs, but you can't deny that view. And that's straight from the game. But then Joel has a real heart-to-heart conversation with her of like, hey, we don't have to do this. We can just head on back to Jackson. Like, and this backdrop of the giraffes is just like, hey, this is what it can be like. This is normal, natural. You can live just a normal life like this.
It has a parent dropping their child off at college for the first time.
It kind of does, doesn't
Conversation in the car moment a little bit there. Like, all right, I know that you're ready for this, but we can call this all off, and you can go to the local college down the street, and you don't have to make a vaccine to save the world.
You don't have to do this, right? I mean,
you don't have to do that.
That's what it feels like. And Ellie responds just in a powerful way. In fact, we used it for the trailer for this series. After all we've been through, everything I've done, everything we've done, it can't be for nothing, right? And then she goes on and says, and when it's all done, we can go back and we can do that. We can live like that. But there's no halfway with this. Yeah. She intends, and this is so good because it really sets up the drama and the tension of she would choose to sacrifice herself.
Yeah, I mean,
like, this is the proof of that, as much as we're going to get before the actual event happens at the end of the episode. So, like, Joel knows where her heart is, which makes it really dicey.
I think that is something that we have to discuss. In my opinion, her character sacrifices herself every time. Even in and most of, in my mind, the weird, odd situation where somebody would say, okay, but, maybe she would if she knew that it would work, 80% of the time, but, they say it only has a 4% chance to work, and she's like, well, I really don't want to give up my life for a 4% chance. I just don't think, I think it's fairly imperfect, so I think for all of the purposes of my discussion about what she would want, it seems very clear that she would choose to sacrifice herself, like you said. That all this can't be for nothing. It's just, even for a small percentage chance to have something different happen, I'm willing to have this journey to endure these perils. And it doesn't seem like we're just going to drop the ball here at the end.
That's exactly right. And it's in some ways a really, I don't want to be derogatory toward it, but it is a very adolescent way of thinking of things. Like, this has to mean something. This has to matter because I went through this thing. I have all of the losses and stuff. Like, even if it's a less than 1% chance, I'm going to do it because this thing has to matter for meaning and stuff. And there's no real nuance in that.
Do you think that's more of an adolescent determination? And if so, what do you think the difference between an adolescent determination is and a more mature determination like Joel? Because like Joel's determination versus Ellie's determination are the two things that are kind of silently at play here. Ellie's very determined to see the world to be potentially a different place. She's younger. She has that kind of more youthful determination. Joel is determined to see the things that he have continue to exist, to be preserved for him to have and to nurture. And so that is more of a kind of mature determination. I'm going to go out and do the work that needs to be done every day to have the thing. And I'm not going to take these big swings and these big risks if I don't have to get what I need.
Something that may be helpful here is something that I had to study in grad school, and it's specifically relevant to faith development, but there was a guy named James Fowler that created a framework for understanding 6 stages of faith development. And even though we use these in religious circles, or at least in analyzing religions and faith development, it's also good for analyzing the ways that people believe and perceive the things that are core values and core beliefs. So, for instance, everybody in a belief system begins, usually at the infant toddler level, of a primal or undifferentiated belief, meaning early learning of the safety of the environment. This is very instinctual, but it moves into what we might call intuitive and projective sort of belief. It's the need for concrete symbols and stories or answers, okay? Now, this is really important because Ellie here wants answers, moving into a mythic and literal sort of school-age mentality of faith. And that's important because this kind of stage, it's technically stage 2 because the first one's stage 0. I don't know why they did that.
It's fine.
Mythic
That's how, in
literal.
Korea, you birthed.
Mythic literal is all about strong beliefs in the justice and reciprocity of the universe.
Yeah.
So when you're believing in something as very mythic and literal, you're saying cause and effect. Like, this thing happened, there's a reason for it. Everything happens for a reason, which is really interesting. It's hot on the heels of the cult discussion last week. And this leads to a greater conformity to the myth. What happens there is that there is a lack of personal agency. And that happens in later faith stage development phases, I guess. Joel is taking on some personal responsibility, some agency, whereas Ellie is just like, this has to be the case. Okay, I am conforming to what's already kind of happened. Versus saying, no, it doesn't have to be that way necessarily. She's looking for meaning and determined to make
this
meaning.
to mean something.
I need this to mean something, which is a dangerous place to be, to be perfectly honest.
Sure.
Because you are then beginning to impose your need for meaning on the world around you. which
makes it better
I feel is
apocalypse story for us. I said it makes a better apocalypse story for us, for sure.
It does, you know, it makes a better apocalypse story, but it also shows, I think, I don't know, like maybe it's because I work with a lot of younger people from freshman to senior year in their college experience, and they come in with so much certainty of their belief system, and there's no agency in it. It's an inheritance from what they've always been told, similar to what Ellie's always been told from Marlene and from those around her, and even from herself. Like, Riley has to matter. My mom has to matter. All of this loss.
Yeah.
I think that is what I'm interested in for season 2. The reckoning with the personal meaning, with the personal agency. And how far is Ellie going to want to go to make sure that her life meant something?
Well, the way that she is processing what happened and what she thinks or was told happens, I think we'll have a lot of insight into that. Because I think to revisit her perspective, we need to know a little bit of what happened that she would have to revisit. Because she doesn't have much else to say here until the end of this episode, and it's a big part of the game. So this smoke bomb goes off, and Joel wakes up, and he finds out that a decision has already been made, and he comes to that conclusion kind of slowly, but where does he find himself in, and who is he talking to?
Yeah, he's in a lab, the Firefly lab, and so he's brought up to speed pretty quickly. Marlene comes in saying that she's really indebted to him, but it becomes apparent really quickly that Ellie is in surgery. It is going to be brain surgery, and it is going to take her life. And so Joel does not like that. He begins to object, but there's really no fixing this. The Fireflies and Marlene have made their decision. And this is added, like the added context of this here is that Marlene understands what Joel's going through because she has cared for Ellie the same way in a lot of ways, you know, having that relationship to her mom for years before.
I think Marlene tries to break it to Joel as easy as Marlene has broken anything to anyone ever. Marlene at this point is used to telling people what to do and listening to maybe a few trusted folks that are near her. And so when she kind of meanders around it, we got a lot of need for the human race. Joel knows something is up because he knows that Marlene is not one to not be direct here, and she's concerned about what he's going to do. And so she has taken steps to guarantee that he can't influence this decision. But he pushes back a little bit because he's like, what does she want? What are we doing? He tries everything that he can, that he's capable of, to talk his way out of it. But he recognizes that he can't. And so Marlene has to kind of thugs, like her little kind of goons, her cronies escort him out. Joel seems to go along with them pretty easily, but we find out that is not for lack of planning his resistance in the future. Talk to us what Joel's thinking here and what happens as he leaves.
I mean, I think he's weighing his options. Joel's always a guy that has some kind of plan. He's like, what is going on? Like, I have to assess the situation. Also, he's coming out of like unconsciousness. So it's like he's a little groggy. And then he's like, okay, we're leading. There's this one moment where they say, we didn't say stop. And he was like, which way? And like, oh, it's about to happen. It's about to be on. Especially if you've played the game before. It's like, I know my breaking moment, my breaking point. And boy, he does. So he attacks his captors, I guess, and takes their weapons. And then we have the scene of going through the hospital, taking down literally everyone. At least in my playthrough, everyone. Even the people that were just minding their own business. I was like, I've got to save my girl.
Yeah, he took down pictures of people on the walls. You said, no, not
like,
even that.
No one.
There will be no memory of anyone because
This will be a wasteland. You're going to wish the cordyceps got you.
Well, it is an iconic scene in the game, this kind of Joel's rampage scene. And you get all the weapons that you have been kind of scrounging for, and you get all the ammunition, and it's just this kind of honeycomb maze of it's really more like a puzzle than like a final fight.
Kind of, yeah.
It's just kind of this series of puzzles that you kind of work your way through as you kind of fight your way towards this surgery center. And Joel does that, and he goes the extra mile, I think, to really make sure to finish people off. And I think they go to great lengths to show that in the show, where he has someone at a disadvantage, or someone is already not a threat, or they're down, or they're already injured, and he stops, and he's just, no nonsense. Nobody else is going to come back to get me. I am just going scorched earth here as he moves through the hospital. What does that say about the choice that he's making here and the mindset that he's in?
He is in alpha protector mode more than anything. He's like, I will stop at nothing to save Ellie because she's my world at this point. And he's found something. It kind of goes back to the Kubler-Ross framework that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. It goes back to the idea of after experimentation, you make a decision, and this is Joel's decision. He believes that there's a life on the other side of this that is worth fighting for, even if it's at the expense of, well, everybody. All of humanity. I think that that's kind of the thing. I don't know if that would be a conscious thought process in somebody, but it's like instinctually, I've got to preserve and protect what is important to me.
Well, it's not the future of humanity that's important to him. It's his future. So he decides that trade-off is not worth it. And so he is going to make sure that Ellie is not operated on here. And so he goes into the surgery room, and this is kind of the first appeal since Marlene that we get any pause to hear. Other people say things to him, and he just kind of doesn't stop at all. He just kind of moves through them. But this right here at the end, there's a doctor and these nurses. They say something to him. He's like, hey, listen, I'm not going to let you take her. And this is reminiscent of the way that this scene goes down in the game. I think it's really kind of almost shot for shot here in the show. What's significant about this scene and this interaction?
I think that it's just like almost the callous nature of just like, get out of my way. You know, these are doctors, techs, nurses who have masks over them. They are very depersonalized, and that's the way Joel sees them. And he knows that they are an obstacle for him having the life that he wants with Ellie in this future, in this kind of rekindling of what he lost 20 years ago. And so they're expendable to him. And it's enraging, and it's also like, oh, gosh, like I kind of get it, but it's wild.
So if the game is in some ways an exploration of what happens with different characters and people based on one person's decision, and it does that by this hallway that goes down to this hospital room. And so Joel makes a decision when he walks down this long hallway. And we, in the other games and in the show, I'm interested to see how they represent this, walk down that same hallway to revisit that same decision, even though we're playing the character that isn't the decision maker. So depending on what their experience was with this room, with this scene, with Joel's decision, we're exploring some of the ripples and ramifications of what happened in one particular moment and how someone else's decision can impact you and the ripple effects that can have in the worlds that we live in and the decisions and attitudes that we make in the future. This hallway scene that leads to this hospital room is kind of that middle drop in the water, in the pond, where everything kind of starts to ripple out. And we think that we've been following this kind of linear story the whole time. But in reality, this is when the kind of focal point of this story shifts in a lot of ways in the game. And it's at the end of the first game here. What is it that is so special about that perspective, and why do you think it's this particular room and this particular hallway that they choose to make stand out in the game? They make you walk through it over and over and over. Because it's the first time we've seen it.
I'm not really sure. Other than I think that they want you to take agency and ownership of it. But it's like you're on a course that you can't really get off of here, and you're going to feel every moment of that. And I don't think that it really, I don't know. I think it becomes more interesting and more important in part 2 in season 2, just because you're given new lenses and context for it. But yeah, I mean, for me, my sight was just blood red colored the whole time. Like, it's like, I don't care what hallway I'm in. I don't care what room it's going to be in. Get me to Ellie and get me out. That's it.
Well, he is an effective communicator, and his language is violence, and he is able to rescue Ellie. Yeah. And he finishes up kind of the events of the first game, and then sets everything up for the rest of their relationship and the start of the second game here. The show, once he gets her, we don't get the same kind of escape scene like we do in the game. Talk about kind of the exit once he retrieves her. The decision says, I'm not going to allow them to end her life to make a vaccine, compared to the game and what we get and where it leaves with the characters.
They have this parking garage conversation with Marlene. Joel is holding Ellie, and Marlene is making an appeal and saying, I can't let you take her. And Joel is like, not having that. There's a slight discussion, and ultimately Joel pulls the trigger twice on Marlene to ensure she's not going to come after her and stuff. Because, again, this is the lengths that he's going to go to preserve his future. And, then you have the kind of wrap-up stuff of the episode. Ellie wakes up, and in the car, they're driving away, and Joel begins this spider web of lies. Basically saying there's plenty of people like you. They have lots of people, and it's just, there's no cure. There's no way of making a cure.
He goes way too far.
He does.
In the lie.
He does. And I mean, the devil is in the details here. I mean, he's fabricating this whole saga and this whole story. And then, in the very final scene, they're walking, and he is like top of the world, talking very, very bluntly about comparisons between Ellie and Sarah. And it just feels weird in a lot of ways. But then Ellie stops him and says, I need you to swear to me that everything that you said was true. And he says, yeah, it's true. And it ends with her just simply saying, okay. But you still don't think that she believes it. And that is obviously the impetus for part 2, season 2. So this ending, I remember after it aired, the Today Show even did like a segment on was Joel's choice right. And there were surveys of like parents versus non-parents and all that kind of stuff. Here with some distance, thinking about the conversations that we've had, the interviews that we've done, where do we sit on this? Have you changed in any ways going through this again, or what are your thoughts?
It's tough to examine if I've changed in any way. I think that Ellie gets a little more agency, a little younger probably, like because of the apocalypse. And Joel is not her parent. Like just because he has like a guardianship role for her.
Yeah.
Like he is not a parent fully.
Yeah.
And I don't like that Ellie didn't get to make that choice herself, and that everything alludes that she would do that, and that is what she would decide. So Ellie's agency, I think, has always been an important thing for me for that game, and I think that Joel taking that away stinks. But ultimately, I don't know how effective the vaccine from the Fireflies would have been. We don't know, and their motives, like they say all the right things, but they're just like the emotional Fedra. Like they're just like, we want people to have freedom and choices, and it's like kind of more in that Kathleen lane. Like, don't you know Kansas City's free? Like I don't think the Fireflies are the shining example of utopia here. So you do have some doubts. Like realistically, if I was Joel, would I think that this is really going to work, or is this just another harebrained scheme that the Fireflies have been talking about? Because maybe they've been talking about a bunch of other schemes before, and this is just another one that they're talking about saving the world and liberty. So I think those things are still at odds for me internally. What do you think based on what we've learned?
I think that I've changed in some ways, especially from the first time I played the game. Because I think that I understood why Joel did what he did. And I'm like, I agree with it. But I was also very, very torn on you're sacrificing the whole world. But given, I don't know how many years it's been, 6, 7, 8 years since the first game came out, maybe even longer, 10 years.
I think it has been longer.
Yeah, 2014, I think it came out. I don't remember. But here's what I've kind of realized revisiting the story 10 years later. It's funny, the older you get, the less, this is going to sound so bad, but I think the older you get, the more narrow your world becomes, which feels really counterintuitive. You should have more experiences and more regard for the world around you, but I actually think that your perspective of the world narrows in a lot of ways because you're beginning to care less about what happens all across the world and more about what happens in your whole world.
Sure. And not everybody, obviously, but for
not
a
everybody.
lot of people.
And I can say that that's true for me as well. I think it's easy when you're young, naive, and inexperienced to say, yeah, I'd sacrifice myself for the entire world. I think you get Ellie in that. But I think the older that you get, it's more like, I don't know, it's not even a futility of like, there's always going to be another issue.
Well,
something else.
So we'll just walk this down, and this is an interesting note to wrap up on. But
sure,
it's not. It's not. I think a lot of people, if you said all you have to do is sacrifice yourself and you'll save the world, just one person, like so, just you, one person, sacrifice yourself, it saves the whole world. People would say, guaranteed. You say, yeah, all you got to do is sacrifice yourself. Saves the whole world. It's like, okay, great. So then imagine everything that you've survived and everything that you've endured in this post-apocalyptic environment. And they say, you have a chance to save the whole world.
Yeah.
But you're going to die. You'd say, well, why did you phrase it that way? How much of a chance do I have to save the whole world? Is it a coin flip? Is it a 50% chance?
Yeah.
And if they say, well, you're going to die, but your death, even if it doesn't work, will help us find the next person to advance the research for something to save us down the line. How many steps removed from my sacrifice is actually helping someone out does this have to get for me to feel like it's worth it here?
Yeah. It's a great question, and it's one that Ellie is ready to say according to her worldview. Now, it's also important that everyone, by her own admission, everyone she's ever cared about or has cared about her is gone, has been lost. So this is going to be hard. She has nothing to lose. Okay, so it's easy to
That's what
sacrifice
she's
yourself.
communicating, yeah.
Okay. In the same way, I bet Ellie would say if it was somebody else, yeah, we can sacrifice them because she has some attachment or detachment issues. Joel, however, because of the events in this game, has developed some attachment. And I think that's what I'm really getting at here. The longer you live, the deeper your attachment is. At 20 years old, you don't have as much to lose.
And they're relative as well.
It's relative.
You can have a deep attachment as is possible for the ability to have it for 20 years. Like it's a 20-year attachment. You can't have a 40-year attachment at 20 years.
It's like when I hear when I hear a 20-year-old say that they're in love. I'm like, okay.
And it's true.
It's so true. In the framework that you have currently, you are in love. But talk to me in 20 more. You know, what's been the ups and the downs and the difficulties? And I think that's where Joel is, right? He's going to do whatever he can to fight for and defend the world that he has found worth living in. And a world without Ellie, it's like, why are we saving anything here? And I don't think that people can really understand that until they find someone specific that they would trade the whole world for. And so I think that that's why it's like the surveys that have been shown about parents saying, yeah, I get what Joel did, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, single people that don't have that same level of attachment, it's like, that's just selfish. It's like, I get it.
Well, everybody is going to have that. Everybody's going to have a different perspective based on their journey and experience, sure. But this story does a great job of letting you see yourself in some part of it. Yeah. Like I'm not a lot like Joel in this way, but maybe I am. Maybe I do see some of his logic. And yeah, right now, and maybe when I was a contractor back in the day, people who were worshipped, then they wouldn't be as evident. But if I was under the same pressures as Joel, maybe I would be more like him. And so you see yourself in this story, so it's worth talking about and it's worth discussing. Yeah. As we kind of wrap up and head into season 2, this is most of what we're going to start talking about, probably. Yeah. We'll talk about what I think some of those theories and really, we're not predictions, right? No. But just curiosities, I think, that we're looking forward to experiencing here as we kind of head into the next season.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where they go with this. I've played the second game, but the way that the show depicts these emotions and these scenes is it's beautiful and it's thought-provoking, and the ways that they've lingered on certain things in season 1, I'm curious how they're going to capitalize on that. Specifically, Ellie's search for meaning, right? Like her own sense of it's got to matter for something. And as we move into perhaps revelations of and collateral from this lie, how is she going to make new meaning?
Yeah.
And how is she going to respond and react? And boy, it's going to be rough. I'm also curious about Joel and how he will continue to protect and preserve his world, even at the expense of others.
Well, we're going to walk down and look down that hospital hallway into that lit room at the end of the hall.
Yeah, we are.
Many, many, many times. And see just how everyone remembers, reconstructs, or believes things happened that kind of continue to change the arc of their existence in this story, in this world. So we'll see you on season.
Yes, we will. See you next week.
Thanks to Husky Belly Geek for our theme music, thanks to Nick Smith for our graphics, and most of all, thanks to you. This program is brought to you by viewers like you, and we appreciate you. We will see you next week for Season 2 of The Last of Us. Bye-bye.